Welcome back to another episode of Sal and Pals Go to the Movies. I'm here with my friend Touly. Say hi, Touly.
Hey everyone.
And today we're going to review Happy Death Day to You. And just a fair warning, there's going to be spoilers up ahead, so you've been warned. Tree Gelman finds herself stuck back in the same loop of reliving the same day as before. Due to an experiment conducted by Ryan and his friends, now once more it's up to Tree to find a way out of this never-ending day. Okay, let's start off by saying that I really tried to go in with an open mind, but yeah, it was kind of hard. I mean, the movie started off good, but up until the scene where I felt that they kind of forgot what they were writing, or maybe more than one person was writing the script because there was too many storylines converging. I mean, if they would have kept it with from Ryan's perspective, maybe reliving the same day alongside Tree, but not interacting with her, but during the same time that she was reliving her day, he relives the same day. Or maybe they could have tag teamed the same day, like for example, team up and basically find out that they're reliving the same day and they join forces. Or in another sense, he could have taken over and just been the focus of the movie. I would have been very appreciative of that, but no, Blumhouse, they add too many elements to it. So in a sense, I think it was like the same concept as too many chefs in the kitchen for this movie. Okay, so here are my issues with the movie. One, what happened to Ryan's doppelganger at the beginning? They never really clarified what happened to him after where Tree went into an alternate dimension. So we never cleared the first storyline of Ryan. I mean, the other thing is, why couldn't they have heard the second Ryan out when they captured him? The Ryan who captured him was too hot-headed and started acting by triggering the machine when he was saying, hey, stop, stop him. If I was there, I would have been, wait, let's hear him out. What does he have to say? Maybe by that, we could have solved it or found something out that we didn't really know, but still, have the machine turn out by itself, and then when we were going to solve it, the machine sends Tree into a different dimension. I mean, that's another concept that they could have explored. And then during Tree's branch of the movie, I mean, why did she have to stop the killer? Because at the beginning, she just wanted to close the loop. Even though there was a killer around, she just wanted to return to her dimension. But then later on, she was really interested in stopping the killer to save the people. I mean, by closing the loop, wouldn't she have returned to her own timeline and reset the day? I mean, it's kind of, I couldn't really understand their logic. I mean, even their science was kind of flawed. Like some parts, like they were trying to explain it with science, saying like this is draining massive amounts of electricity, but at the same time was just a small machine that was out in the open that couldn't really have the potential to do that kind of time disturbance. I mean, because me and Touly, we're really fans of time travel movies and stuff like that, and we see how normally in some other movies they played it off by draining massive amount of electricity and burning out circuits and stuff like that. But this machine doesn't really do anything to itself. It doesn't break down or anything. It just, they have to adjust it with a screwdriver, which to me just seems really redundant. And then on top of that, there's science. How can one algorithm be able to distinguish between Tree either staying in that dimension or returning to hers? Because Ryan tells her, do you want to go or do you want to stay? He doesn't even bring up the thing like, hey, give me some time because you need to tell me beforehand, because it's not that easy as plugging in a 1 or a 2. It's like he needs to calculate the variables, and they went through this at the beginning. There's so many variables that we need to account for. Well, Tree going or leaving, that's another variable that's very important. If she leaves, they need to bring the original Tree back. So how are they going to do that? They can't just sit there and use the same formula for all the answers. So to me, it just seemed like it was a scapegoat they were using, just throw out numbers and writing on the chalkboard and look, it's science, we're done kind of thing. I mean, I feel like this is kind of where the meme of the old ladies from the Allstate commercial where they're like, this is not how this works. This is not how any of this works. I felt like that in the movie. I was like, no, this is not how time travel works. You should address it properly. Also, when they reference Back to the Future, I mean, it was the sense of me face palming myself. I'm like, okay, they're going to do the same thing they did in the one by referencing Groundhog's Day and Tree acting like she's never seen a movie. And I'm like, you're referring to a classic and having, yes, I know that she's acting like the blonde blonde bimbo, but at the same time, she shows us that she's really smart. At the same time, I'm pretty sure she has gone to see movies, you know? So it's not like she's just out of tune and like, oh, I'm only interested in my things and that's it. So for her to actually act like she didn't know what Back to the Future was, you know, like to me, it kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I mean, I know Blumhouse was trying to make a joke there, but it didn't work. Also, the ending to the movie did not fit well. When they went into the secret lab or the secret service, whatever you call them, I forgot their name. They walk in and they say, you know, we have this, we want you guys to help us. They asked for a guinea pig and Tree said, I know the perfect candidate. In a sense, I would actually prefer it if they stepped in there and when they walked into the room with the machine, they would have encountered multiple copies of Ryan or Tree standing there. And this is another problem. Like they were messing with the time-space continuum or something. And that is the problem they needed to solve. Now, for my brief list of pros. I really enjoyed once they referenced Back to the Future when she killed herself throwing herself through the tree grinder. On the side, it said Biff's Tree Removal Company or Service. That's a reference to Biff from the Back to the Future movies. Also, at the beginning of the movie, when Ryan was actually trying to be killed by himself, I actually felt that had really strong potential to becoming the story and the plot of the movie. But then it was short-lived. After that, we forgot about him. We forgot about that story and we moved on to Tree. Also, the idea of having to choose one reality over another reality gives me the vibe of Sliders or possibly like anime series that we've seen. And that really made me feel like a familiar vibe. I'm like, I can really get into this. Having one character choose between this timeline or versus this alternative perfect timeline they wanted and they can't have. Okay, so with that, I'm going to pass it on to Touly and see what he thinks about this movie.
For me, the first thing that came to my mind, even before ever watching the film, I guess it just goes back to me discovering that there was going to be a sequel to Happy Death Day. And my first thought was, why did it need a second one? I thought the first one did, in terms of like closing the story, I thought it was done and it was like, all right, Blumhouse has come up with their own little time loop sort of a movie and the struggle that this character they had in the film, Tree, you know, the struggle she went through in order to get some sense of closure. It was what it was. And I thought, all right, so what can they possibly do in a sequel that would justify its production other than the financial aspect? With that in mind, I went into the film with not a lot of expectations. And to some of Sal's point, I do agree with, like, some of the things just didn't make sense or they didn't follow up on that I felt like they should have followed up on. Some things that transitioned to the main core of the story didn't get explored, or I thought they just, you know, placed it in there so that it sort of convinces us, the audience, that, all right, either you take it or leave it, so that it kind of leads up to what's going to happen next. I'll mention a little bit more specifically when as I'm talking here about the movie, but to Sal's point about Ryan, how the movie started off showcasing Ryan and how he's in charge of that little group he has where they developed the machine that caused the time loop anomaly. I mean, my first thought to that was I think I might be a little picky here too, but like my thought was, how did they allow something like this device, how did the school allow this to be invented, knowing that it could lead to very dangerous scenarios? Even they said it itself, they don't know exactly what this thing could do because they're not too sure about the algorithms and stuff like that. You know, there's already that I'm questioning. And also to Ryan and his comrades who, you know, were working on this project, I thought like until later on into the film where they accepted that it was their fault that they caused Tree to have gone through what she did, starting with the first film, Happy Death Day. I felt like they were the one who should have been more accountable. And Ryan comes to accept this later in the film, and it led to what he did, wanting to help out Tree at the sacrifice of his, I guess, student career. Even the other two students who were with him, they accepted that as well. Like they were okay with doing whatever was necessary, even if it got them into very difficult situations, like getting expelled from the university or whatever. But I thought it came about a little too late. And other than Ryan, who showed a little character in that spotlight, I didn't really care too much about Ryan or his lab comrades. Like even at the beginning where they were showcasing Ryan having to go through this loop and you saw his doppelganger or whatever. Yeah, like like Sal, I was a little confused as to why Blumhouse went in this direction without elaborating a little bit further as to this other copy of Ryan. I mean, they explained it, the copied Ryan wanted to get rid of the present Ryan because he was gonna use the device and it was gonna cause a lot of problems. From that retrospect, I get it. Like, maybe he wanted to destroy the device or something, or not just prevent him from using it. But I wish they would have elaborated a little bit more to give it more meaning, more reasoning behind them. But in the end, they just completely disregarded it. So I sort of see it like Sal there, where in the end, it seemed kind of pointless. I suppose too, like towards the latter, I would say third of the film, that's to me that when things completely went haywire, in the sense of they came up with reasons to explain stuff that you wouldn't accept if there wasn't enough time to develop those situations. For instance, when Tree came out to say that she felt that she couldn't keep doing this whole getting killed thing and coming back to life to sort of, come up with the algorithm or the correct algorithm to help the guys, because she was feeling weaker and weaker each time she did this. And they sort of showed this each time she woke up, like it felt like she was in pain. But to me, it never felt like it was depicting her getting weaker and weaker. Like, sure, maybe that was just a reaction to her dying each time, and that was her sense of pain. Like, I always question too, like, did Tree feel pain whenever she died the way she did, or was it always instant? And because of that, she was never discouraged from wanting to keep dying like this so that she could just get out of this loop. So I'm thinking her feeling that aftershock each time she woke up, that was Blumhouse sort of telling us that maybe this was her way of telling the audience she doesn't want to keep doing it, because if the pain was just too much for her to endure. Yeah, so physically, I just never got the indication that she wasn't like strong enough to keep doing this. Like, I felt like she was motivated to keep doing this because of the dilemma that she was put in, and to me that was a good thing. I want to mention the cons first. And when they got Danielle, the sorority's leader, to assist them in stealing the key from the dean, I thought that was way too abrupt for her to have accepted the role, and it was a little over the top with her acting as the blind person, and it went along for a little too long, like the gag. That also speaks to like the comedy in this film too. I felt like a lot of it was forced, a lot of one-liners, and very not just cliche, but the sort of jokes that you identify with the sort of people that are in this film, like the nerdy folks and stuff, things of that nature. Yeah, I mean, there were stuff that I just, like Sal, I sort of face palmed, but to some of the good stuff about the film though, and to me, this is where my expectations sort of allowed me to appreciate the film a little bit more, because like I said, I went to the film not having a lot of expectations. Some of the good things though, and this is just me being a little personal here, but when I saw the setup of the laboratory and how they had like a Nintendo console there, the board game Catan, it made me chuckle. I mean, little like Easter eggs. So I was like, okay, it sort of blends into these characters. I sort of appreciated that. But I think the one thing though that I would identify to this film that I really, really enjoyed, it sort of relates to the idea that this film is a slasher film, but yet not a slasher film. The reason why I bring this up is because for me personally, I'm not a big fan of slasher films in retrospect of like senseless killings. I feel like in general, in order to enjoy movies like slasher films, you need to sort of turn off your brain and just accept things for what it is. And by that I mean, in slasher films, you normally just expect people to die, regardless of whether they're intelligent characters or not. Sometimes they just get into a situation where you always are questioning yourself as an audience. Why are you doing this? Why are you going to that dark alley? Stuff of that nature. So you need to sort of just shut off your brain and just take it for what it is. But this film, it sort of deviated from being a slasher film itself. And it had, again, these situations where Tree was placed in where she had to make a decision. And to me, I appreciated that because it gave the film a little bit more substance. It wasn't just, like I said, pointless killing here and there. She had a reason for her actions. And for a portion of the film, I felt like I was actually watching like a movie, like that there was some sort of direction in this character, that there was some sort of growth in this character, and she wanted to overcome it. And for them to have take it to the next level, which I thought they should have already placed it in the first film. Here they introduced Tree's mother back into the equation, and she had to make a decision. And for me, I like that aspect because then it's about testing her character now. Does she want to stay in this current timeline with her mom, who's still alive, or she goes back to her previous timeline where her mother doesn't exist, and we know how important her mother is to her. So for me, I like this dilemma that they brought to her, because it showed a lot about her character. And despite her having already come to some sort of closure with her father in the first one, I feel like giving her this closure with the mother also elevated her character to another level. So I really appreciated that. And for her to kind of decide what was the right thing to do in the end, I think to me that's how I sort of explain what Sal was criticizing earlier about her wanting to save these people and like what was the purpose of it and stuff. I sort of treated it as a way to measure your character, regardless of whether or not the outcome mattered. If she returned to her timeline, like it's sort of like that thing where if you did this for somebody and they don't remember the following day, would you still keep doing this if it benefited them or it helped them or something? And if you do, then it sort of showed like your true color in a sense, like you as a character. Versus what Carter, I mean, there was a conversation that he had with her specifically about her possibly being very selfish if she had all this knowledge, but she didn't use it to help people who were going to die and she was just going to be a bystander. That's how I sort of looked at that. I still do agree, like the whole bringing like science into the equation, that was kind of like cheesy. Again, just a way for them to explain it. I wish it was just would have been one of those like those phenomena that maybe the universe was pinning down on Tree and she had to go through this experience to like become a better person and stuff. I would have just accepted that. They didn't need to explain why there was a time loop, but I guess Blumhouse just needed an actual physical reason to convince audience that there was a logic to why this was happening. So with that being said, would I say this film was like great? No, but it was a pleasant surprise. For a good portion of the film, I was able to actually enjoy it and not always facepalm myself whenever I saw something that I would question. So yeah, the best way I could describe it is I enjoyed it way more than I thought I would.
I also, going off what you said, I did see the reference for the console, the NES console. I did see the board game and all that. So that kind of made it more of a, okay, these guys, I see that these guys are scientists and they're nerdy and stuff like that. It kind of gave me that vibe. You're like, okay, I accept it, instead of versus just having a chalkboard full of equations and like, look, they're smart. No, it's like these are regular students who are, you know, at the same time, they like to have fun, but they like to, you know, do schoolwork. It's a realistic take on their characters, but the way they were acting didn't really seem like I wasn't concerned about them. I wasn't invested in them. They were just there for me. They were just placeholders, but they were legit placeholders. To what you were talking about, that Tree, if she felt pain, I think what we've come to always like compare to is the anime ReZero and the character Subaru, who every time he dies, the day resets. Kind of the same logic, but in the anime, he does feel pain, and that's what his point is, that he doesn't really want to die to reset the day because he's going to go through pain. Well, in this movie, we did see her drink Drano and stuff like that and wake up craving water, but at the same time, it didn't give you that sense of like, oh my god, she's in pain. Now, compared to the anime, they kind of did it better. That's what I want to say. But at the same time, yeah, I would have liked them to actually touch upon her feeling weaker and physically show it, not just say, hey, you know, I feel like I'm getting weaker. No, show it. They wanted to attribute it like this is a really influential factor, but at the same time, they just skipped over it.
Like to me, like to go off on that point too, what I wanted to add to though was I think maybe they wanted us to maybe identify her getting weaker from a mental sort of perspective, because the amount of time that Tree had to like see her mom, I think that caused her a lot of mental stress, knowing that she's alive but she's not her mother, if that makes any sense. Like, so like just having to go through that route over and over and having to deal with everything that led up to that moment. To me, I think that film convinced me that she was breaking down mentally, but the way they described it felt like it was more of a physical thing. So that's where the disconnect was for me.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. With that, let's give it our final grade. Touly, what did you give this movie?
I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. It was actually one of the better Blumhouse movies I've seen. Like I said, it had substance. And whenever a film, regardless of its genre, if it has substance, then those are the sort of films I gravitate towards. Otherwise, it would have been just like a pointless slasher film where you get this cliche, you know, blonde character who isn't very great great about or very knowledgeable about the situation, how to deal with it, and then somehow come out on top. Like, I could see the effort, even in the actress herself, Jessica Roth, who I thought was pretty much the star in this film from start to finish. Like, if it wasn't for her, then I felt like I would have really not enjoyed this film at all. So, kudos at least to her for putting on the acting that she did. I was convinced that she was struggling, and for a good portion there, I felt like I was really, immersed into the world. But then again, like I said, it kind of took me out towards the the end of the film with all the explanations that they were trying to come up with to sort of solidify where they were at, which didn't quite hit the mark for me. But like I said, there was a good portion that was really immersed, so I have to give the film props for that. So
Okay, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. I mean, I see the same points you talked about. I really enjoyed some of the scenes when she died and how she kind of came back alive. For example, when she jumped off the tower and she was falling, it kind of melted when she was falling into the bed. So it kind of gave me this artistic feel to the movie. I mean, it kind of did play on, comedy, jokes and everything, but at the same time, there's some scenes that I really appreciated. Other than that, I think they just wanted to solve everything really fast in the last act. I think that's what you were referring to, but I didn't feel that they kind of did it the right way. I think it was just like too rushed. 5 out of 10 for me. The movie had potential, but it's, like I said, Blumhouse is Blumhouse. Sometimes they give us good movies like Get Out, and some other times we get movies like this. Okay, so I guess that does it for this movie review of Happy Death Day to You. Please join us next time when we review Greta. Social media is down in the description. Hit us up if you have any questions, and remember, keep watching movies.